Let me ask you a question, and I know we're talking about tag teams, but I think this is important. And I was thinking about this last night. Do you think Ric Flair's title run and the monopolization of the NWA Championship by Jim Crockett Promotions hurt or even killed the rest of the NWA territories?
Having him keep the belt for that long and not putting others over.
He didn't drop the belt to anyone outside of Crockett.
Yeah, I think that does play a part because.
Let me correct myself. He did drop it for the Kerry Von Erich for like 5 minutes, but I'm not counting. I'm talking about a major run. The only time he basically dropped the belt was to Dusty and to Ronnie Garvin.
Yes. I can see that point of view, and I can think it can be kind of substantiated because what happens, if you look now in wrestling, right, they put the belt on certain people in certain eras, and only those people.
Yeah.
You know, so you only had that particular person, you know, and I think by doing that, you devalue the dangerousness of that other opponent in that whole promotion, you know. I remember there was a time, kind of jumping ahead, but there was a time when they had Triple H take on like the tag champs and defeat him by himself. And to me, that was like really bad because it kind of devalued them as a team, you know. It's like, wow, two guys can't beat one dude, really? You know, a handicap match?
Because when I looked it up, Flair did not defend the title outside of Jim Crockett Promotion after 1986. You know, other than some shows in Japan, did not defend it outside the Crockett Promotion.
Right.
So, like, what happened to the guys in St. Louis? What about Mid-South? What about Dallas? And that's why the NWA kind of fell apart at that point under Jim Crockett's being president. So I always wonder if he would have maybe dropped the belt in Dallas, like legitimately dropped the belt to like Kevin Von Erich, because he seems the most reliable anyway. Or what if he would have dropped the belt to Ted DiBiase? Or what if he dropped the belt to Wyndham in Florida?
Oh, I've always felt that Wyndham should have got the belts.
He did at the end, but it didn't really count. I think he beat Muta for it. I think he had a title match with Flair. I think it went to like a DQ or something. They're talking about like 93, 94, after when Watts brought it back. But even Luger, Luger didn't get his run the right way. So with Flair dominating the championship scene and only really putting over Dusty and Ronnie Garvin and not putting over the top stars in St. Louis and Kansas City, even in Puerto Rico, those guys never had a run. Even Georgia, these guys never had a run. What are you going to do? And I wonder, I mean, everyone says like, oh, Vince came in and stole their TV and put them out of business.
Yeah.
But it's like, he stopped touring at 86. I mean, I know a lot of these went out of business or weren't the same, but he wasn't necessarily touring in 87. No, he was at Battle of the Belts, and he was at the first Battle of the Belts, and he fought a aging Wahoo McDaniel, but it wasn't like he was going to drop the belt to him either. I mean, he fought Luger in Florida, too, when he was there. He fought Rotunda in Florida when he was there. Had a couple of matches with the Von Erichs. I think he had a match with Jimmy Garvin.
Yeah.
None of that stuff went anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to make because, anytime you want to kind of, to use out-of-way terms, sell the value of the belt, you have to also have them fight competition that's a legit threat. I think the thing with Flair that got to be a problem for me was I was always a Flair guy over a Hogan guy because I thought he was a much better performer. What ended up having happen was you just knew whoever he was facing was going to beat the hell out of him and he'd lose by DQ or a count out or running, And to me, that just kind of cheapened the championship and his reign. That's why I hated that part of it.
It's funny, when Hogan dropped the belt, he dropped it for a year. It wasn't like, 5 days and I won the belt back. When they put the belt on Savage, Savage had it for a year. When they put the belt on Warrior, almost a year. You know what I mean? And those are they're more definite than like, Dusty won this week, but they took the belt back because he was bleeding. Or whatever shenanigans or kind of excuse to put the belt back on Flair.
Right.
And that may have worked in the territory days, but when you had nationwide TV, and at that time they were starting to get results. You had the fan clubs, you had the newsletters out. That shit wasn't going to work. That territory system, that's 1970s territory system, wasn't going to work. And those Dusty finishes wasn't going to work if you're going to have Flair fucking win. Fuck it.
Well, I agree. I think what happened a lot too was you had the casual fans just get turned off by that stuff. Like when you had, remember Luger was fighting Flair, and he had him in the torture rack.
Yeah.
And they were like, it was like American Bash one year.
It might have been Starrcade '88. It might have been. There's so many Flair Luger matches that they'll kind of mix together. I think it might have been True Grit.
Always ended with some kind of quirky, stupid thing that you're just like, if you're not gonna ever give him the belt, and I think, like you said, if you took the belt and put it on somebody for a while and gave them a run with it, like elevated Randy Savage.
Yeah, big time.
And that's what I would say too. Like, if you look at the titles now, like I know, like in WWE, outside of when Cena had the U.S. title, it really hadn't been worth a lot again.
Yep.
But you elevated it, right? And I still say that if they wanted to elevate the title, you make someone have a legit run at the record that Honky Tonk Man held.
Yep.
And I think the only reason they haven't done that is they don't want to bring his name up. But it's legit, like have a honky meter, and have him get close to it,
No, I think not putting the belt on Luger in '88 or '89 really damaged Luger going forward. So when he won it at the Great American Bash 1991, by the way, it's one of my favorite pay-per-views, it didn't mean anything because he didn't beat Flair for it. At least Sting beat Flair for it. Now his first title run wasn't that great, and that's due to his injury. He had that knee injury, and then that had turned Luger face. The way it was going, he was going to fight Luger in the second half of '90 and have that fresh matchup. But that shit was botched, and he ended up, still fighting Flair. He had a pay-per-view against Sid, and then they go into Black Scorpion. So that Sting injury kind of ruined their booking in 1990, coming off a pretty good year in terms of storylines and creative in 1989.
Yeah.
But I go back and wonder if they would have put the belt on someone who was a big star in St. Louis, if they would have put the belt on DiBiase or Gordy or Steve Williams. I mean, there's 1,000 different guys. Why? I mean, I understand why Dusty, but why Ronnie Garvin? I have no idea. Some people say that they knew they were going to drop the belt back in a couple months, and they didn't want to take the belt off him, because I think that's bullshit, though.
Yeah, I've always felt that was a big mistake, and what they did is that in the long run is they hurt viability. Like, if you had Ted DiBiase win, or Steve Williams, let's say Steve Williams came in and you had him demolish Flair, and like, oh my God, kind of remember Vader was like that, an established threat, and instead you got the DQ finish.
Go back and they're available. They're available on the network. Go back and watch them, and like, you don't get a satisfactory ending on 90% of the shows from Crockett.